This is the trib.
Put it over here.
It's called the telephone wire winter, when knees, fenders, and fence posts no longer served as adequate comparisons to the mountains of snow that swallowed trains. In a 1936 Des Moines Register article, Jim Pollock wrote that the snow was so deep that Lloyd Keller walked from Clarksville to his job at the State Teachers College in Cedar Falls among drifts so high he touched telephone wire. And the legend was born. Officially, the winter of 1936 was the second coldest and fourth snowiest in Iowa history. But the 36-day stretch from January 18th to February 22nd was the granddaddy of Iowa winters. The statewide average temperature was 2.4 degrees below zero, with one blizzard after another. It was the worst stretch of weather since the state began keeping records in 1819. Newspaper stories that winter said the snow was so extreme that Caterpillar tractors couldn't plow the roads. So they were joined by groups of men with scoop shovels. In the midst of the Depression, 1,600 men from the Works Progress Administration cleared the streets of Des Moines. As the snow piled higher and temperatures tanked, hardships began to mount.
This is talking about how they've had difficulty delivering the papers because of the weather.
Mail deliveries stopped and farmers couldn't transport milk and eggs. By February, coal, the primary source of heat, was in short supply because rail lines were shut down. So schools and churches were closed and business hours shortened to conserve fuel. Come mid-February, 1 to 3 feet of snow covered Iowa with 10 to 15-foot drifts common. 100-ton locomotives with plows were no match. Farmers struggled to feed and water livestock, which consumed twice as much feed as usual due to the severe cold. Nearly half of Iowa's wildlife perished. At its worst, ice on the Iowa River near Iowa Falls was 42 inches thick. In time, spring came, and Iowans smiled, knowing they'd endured the most severe winter in Iowa history. Little did they know, the summer of 1936 would be just as memorable and just as extreme as Iowa's worst winter. At the beginning of summer 1936, Franklin Roosevelt prepared for re-election, and most in the Hawkeye State were optimistic the Great Depression had run its course. No one imagined that it would be the hottest summer in Iowa's history.
During that period of time, I think it was almost 10 or 11 days straight where it never went down below 100 degrees.
It was a head-snapping turnaround from the brutal winter, and Donald Ross had to cope with the heat while in high school here in Cedar Rapids.
It was so warm as you would walk across, you could feel your feet as you walk go down softly into that asphalt.
The summer sizzle reached its peak the first 2 weeks of July, when it was nothing short of pure misery. Des Moines endured a stretch of 15 consecutive days where temperatures were over 100 degrees or higher. On July 15th, the average high for all 113 weather stations in Iowa measured 108.7 degrees. It's still the hottest month in Iowa weather history.
If you wanted to get cool, you tried to either individually or go with your family, go down to the Paramount or the State or the Iowa Theater, because they did have air cooling.
Air conditioning was a new invention, and few could afford it. A Kelvinator sold for $292, about $5,000 in today's money. To keep cool, a pinch of salt and a cold glass of water was a more common remedy. When the sun went down, it was still blazing hot. Nighttime temperatures in the 80s and 90s forced many to sleep outside on a porch or the lawn.
It gets to the point, you know, where you're sweating and it gets so hot it evaporates all your sweat.
The intense heat scorched crops. Great clouds of dust billowed across the heartland from the southwest, creating haze. Like great biblical plagues, grasshoppers and chinch bugs devoured fields. When the heat finally broke, more than 5,000 people had died, hundreds right here in Iowa. ISU professor Paul Lastly thinks it was the beginning of the end for many of the state's small communities. A lot of Iowa's rural counties reached their peak in population in the 1930s, and they've been shrinking ever since. The hardship was just too great, he said. There were more opportunities in the city, and that trend continues to this day. Without debate, the July 1936 heat wave was Iowa's worst summer. It's the one all others are measured against.
The last time I saw this was May 3rd at 5.
Is there?
And
Right?
yes, I did. And I said, something bad's going to happen.
Jeff Petrosky remembers the deadliest tornado in modern history. On May 22, 2011, an EF5 tornado devastated the town of Joplin, Missouri, killing nearly 160 people and injuring more than 1,000.
And as soon as that storm hit that boundary, it went to tornado, just large, huge, violent F4 to F5, and we're there to, unfortunately, to witness it all.
He's one of the hundreds of storm chasers who communicate to the National Weather Service and media. Chasers are the eyes on the ground who are critical in detecting tornadoes. But for Petrosky, the work continues after the storm passes.
When you go in a city and you go into somebody's total strangers and you're on a street pretty much by yourself for a couple hours and you're digging family member out of family member, both dead and alive, out of house after house after house, you have an emotional bond to those people.
Due to the devastation in Joplin, the National Weather Service changed how they communicate urgency in particularly dangerous situations.
Research has shown that people often will seek additional information once they receive the warning.
Now the Weather Service uses harsher language to convey serious threats. Terms such as catastrophic, life-threatening, considerable damage, and tornado emergency are added to warnings. They are only used once there is visual confirmation of a tornado or damage. Just 10 minutes down the road from the National Weather Center is Moore, Oklahoma. It is home to the most violent tornado ever recorded in U.S. history. In fact, in 2013, an EF5 tornado ripped across the town, causing catastrophic damage. Included in the devastation was one of the city's elementary schools. The mile-wide twister crashed into Briarwood Elementary, killing a number of children. Today, that school is rebuilt and brand new. But for the kids that lived through that terrible day, the memories will remain forever.
Kind of started to sound like kind of weird, and everybody was getting worried, and I was with my friend Jaron, and we were trying to joke around with it and stuff. We never thought it would actually happen.
I was hiding under the desk, same as him, and everybody was screaming and crying and stuff. I was freaked out. I knew it was going on, but I felt like I didn't, so it just was pretty bad.
To fight back against Mother Nature, the school now boasts a whole range of new safety features.
We have 6 storm shelters, and they can all fit about 100 people, and we have about 600 kids. And now we have helmets for everybody. We're all prepared now.
Staying on top of the newest technology is critical when putting out storm warnings. But lead forecaster Rich Thompson with the SPC also says getting out and experiencing the storms firsthand is also essential.
But if you want to learn as a meteorologist, I think it's a fantastic tool. I mean, it's just like anything else. How could you get good at playing baseball if you never actually go out and play?
Jarrett Rogers, also with the SPC, agrees.
Going out there into the field and actually witnessing these things firsthand has probably improved my understanding of how severe storms work.
But how does a supercell grow? And what happens to change it from a thunderstorm to a tornado? Terry has been documenting the changes of supercell's development, and he comes to us now live from Texas via telephone. Terry?
Karen, we just are following a massive thunderstorm just northeast of Lubbock, Texas, and we got into the hail core with it not too long ago. Fortunately, the hail did not hit us, but we shot some video from the storm earlier on, and we stepped out in it. It was probably 2 inches deep. It was covering the roads. I picked up a few stones that were as large as golf ball size. There was also torrential rains, and I mean, it looked like it had snowed out here. There was about 2 inches of hail, and the hail was so cold, and the temperatures of the atmosphere were so warm just above it that we got into some areas of really dense fog with visibility almost zero in spots, because that hail just had covered the ground and we had all the warm, humid air over the top of it. That was quite a sight to see, and now the storm has moved on to the northeast, so we are repositioning and starting to come in from the southwest. On our radar, we are looking at strong rotation in it. I haven't had any reports of any tornadoes yet, but it is a rotating supercell, and this is the kind of storm that can produce a tornado, and we are under a tornado warning in the area that we currently are traveling through. So our target destination has worked out well today. We are in the throes of the chase right now, and no doubt we'll be picking up different video. We do have a live stream that we're running right now on CBS2Iowa.com. You can follow us there as we approach the storm now from the south, and hopefully we can find that elusive tornado today. If nothing else, we are definitely going to have some very large hail to show you later on tonight. So, we're inside the storm near Lubbock, Texas. It's Chief Meteorologist Terry Swales.
Tonight, Chief Meteorologist Terry Swales got what he was looking for in the Great Plains. Right now, he's on his way back to eastern Iowa to share what he saw and what he learned. Terry joins us live right now from Kansas as his week-long mission to take us inside the storm ends on a successful note. And Terry, you have really seen a lot this week.
It's been an amazing week. Our goal when we left Cedar Rapids to go chasing was to learn as much as we possibly could about severe storms and also to capture a live tornado and stream it back to our audience in eastern Iowa. And we were able to accomplish our mission today. But it took all of our experience and knowledge to get the job done. Early today, we knew the parameters were looking pretty strong for at least some severe weather and perhaps tornadoes. One of the things that we really liked about today's situation was the available moisture. The dew points were up around 70 and the temperatures were in the 80s. And with the right shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere, that was the recipe for supercells. The problem we were going to have, though, was that there was so much moisture, these were probably going to be rain-wrapped tornadoes. And these are called HP supercells, in other words, high precipitation producers, and that's one of the things that we ran into today. So oftentimes the actual tornado is wrapped in rain, and the only way you can see it is to come in from the right direction, and even then it's a very difficult process. And we tried several different times as the tornado was developing to get in behind it, just didn't have any luck. So finally, on the third attempt, we pulled up on the crest of a hill, knew the storm's rotation was tracking south of us, and we let it come at us. And I mean to tell you, it was black, it was ugly, it was the most menacing thing that I have ever seen. But sure enough, there it was. It dropped off to the east of us, maybe a little over a mile away, and then the rain came gushing in once again, and that was the last we saw of that. We tried to chase it for another hour or so and got into some hail, some strong winds, I'm guessing at least 70 miles an hour. I mean, the trees were getting the leaves busted off because of the size of the hail, and it was really intense, an amazing experience to say the least, but we definitely did get our tornado today, and so we're wrapping up our chase. So as we pack things up here and start heading back to Iowa, I can honestly say I have seen a lot of things that I've never experienced before. Yesterday we had the hail fog thanks to that 2-inch hail that was on the ground, and it was really icy and cold at the ground level, but aloft, of course, it was extremely warm, about 80 degrees, and the fog at times was so thick that you could barely see the car in front of you. That was an eye-opening experience. And then today to see the power and magnitude of this storm system, that was truly breathtaking, and boy, did we ever learn a lot from that. So I think we're all ready to come home and see our families and get this one behind us. And I can tell you this much, I am a smarter man and a better meteorologist for it. So from Wichita, Kansas tonight, I am signing off, and we'll see you back in Iowa on Monday.
Terry, thank you.
Well, a stationary boundary has set up shop over eastern Iowa, and some very intense thunderstorms developed tonight in our far northern and western counties. And boy, did they ever produce some incredible rainfall totals. This is the Doppler estimates of how much rain may have come down, and this is Floyd County, so there's Charles City, and this is northern Butler County, and now you're getting into Chickasaw County. And in this region right in here, rainfall totals of 5 to as much as 10 inches were estimated by the actual radar itself. Some of the heaviest totals located just to the northeast of Greene. So a lot of rain has come down in this area. Flash flooding is definitely occurring at this very hour, and we do have flash flood warnings in effect for Chickasaw, Butler, Bremer, and Floyd counties, some of these until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So flash flooding is ongoing, and with additional thunderstorms possible in those areas later on tonight, there could be more problems if those do develop as expected. Meantime, here is our flash flood watch, which covers southern Wisconsin and our northern 2 tiers of counties, and then it kind of cuts back and goes through Waterloo. So some major cities in that are Waterloo, Owine, and then you get up to Prairie du Chien, Decorah, and Charles City. And that is going to be out until Thursday evening. Now as we go to the radar, you can see thunderstorms still passing through northeastern Iowa, and new ones are beginning to form up in Minnesota there, and some of those are expected to work their way back in once these move on out.
Ongoing coverage of our breaking weather news tonight. Firefighters in Charles City are now going door to door to warn residents evacuations could be ordered at any time between now and Friday afternoon when the Cedar River is forecasted to crest. Floyd County officials say travel is not advised countywide due to widespread flooding and more rain expected tonight. Several road closures countywide due to high water. We keep monitoring the situation. We'll bring you the latest overnight on CBS2Iowa.com.
And we are also expecting now moderate flooding in Waterloo, major flooding in Vinton and Cedar Rapids, a crest potentially near 20 feet in Cedar Rapids, which would have been the old record before 2008. So that's a big deal there. And additional storms still out there in the forecast tonight and into tomorrow.
See you on CBS 2.
Chief Meteorologist Terry Swales for more details. Terry?
Yeah, and it's not just Cedar Rapids, too. We've had so much rain around parts of our northern counties. All that water is now rushing downstream, and many rivers and streams in eastern Iowa are at or above flood stage and will stay there for several more days. Wanted to show you some of the crests, though, on the Cedar River, because this is one of the rivers that's really going to take a hard hit. It does involve a lot of metro areas. And in Cedar Falls, we're looking at a crest there of around 101 feet. That's only a little over a foot short of the all-time record crest in 2008. The Cedar River in Waterloo going up to 26.4 feet, so major flooding anticipated there. And finally, downstream, as we get towards Vinton, the crests are expected on Sunday, and they should be close to 23.1 feet. Eventually, the water finally rushes into Cedar Rapids, and the worst of it is expected around 1 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, so just after midnight, when the crest right now is projected at 25.3 feet. There is a chance that could go up or down a little bit depending on what happens with rainfall in the next 48 hours, but as it stands now, we need to prepare for a flood with a 25-foot crest. And that is a real problem maker on the river here. This is where the main channel would typically run in this darker shade of blue. Once you get to 25 feet, you can see what happens here, how the river expands and moves out, and it covers a lot of residential areas on both sides. It also gets into the downtown, and if it does get to 25 feet, it will go over a lot of the bridges in the downtown area as well, and that's only happened one other time, and that was back in the big flood of them all in 2008. And as we take a look,
there are some people who have commented on my Facebook page the 500-year flood shouldn't have happened for another 500 years.
Really? Well, can it? And what are the odds? Let's talk to meteorologist Rebecca Kopelman and find out.
Well, unfortunately, a 500-year flood doesn't mean that it just happens once every 500 years. It's pretty much a statistic, and the odds of it happening are 1 in 500. And when we put that in percentage terms, it's very, very small. It's a 0.2% chance of that happening. But what that means is that it's a 0.2% chance of that happening in any given year. So that means it could actually happen every year. It's not very common that it does. However, those are the chances that it can happen. And this year, it happens to be because of the heavy rain that fell. In 2008, it was considered a 500-year flood. This year, we don't know what it's going to be until it actually happens. And what we do know right now is what it looks like in the current projections. It would be the second highest on record. So this is likely going to be a historical flood and will be the second time the river in Cedar Rapids has gone over 20 feet on record, the only other time being 2008. And these records date back to 1851.
Yeah, Scott and Karen, good evening from Cedar Falls, where the river is still very high, near its crest. Same story about 10 miles that way in Waterloo, where the river is near its crest. I'm going to step out of the shot here for you so Scott can kind of show you some of the impact of this river. This water is rushing by, very powerful. It's about 2 or 3 feet up the trunks of these trees that are out there in the river. Same story with the light poles there. The Ice House Museum just up here to our right is surrounded by river water. We're about 20 feet away from the railroad track, which runs along, normally quite a way away from the river, but this one's, tonight the river's up maybe 15 feet or so away from the railroad railroad tracks. So this water is very strong, still rushing on downstream. Cities in Vinton and Cedar Rapids, Scott and Karen, as you folks have been telling us tonight, we have some very, very major flooding, both of those cities. So I was here for the flood of 2008, guys. It was absolutely miserable and impacted many, many lives for a long time after the flood was gone. This one, I got to say, probably going to be about the same thing.
Let's go to Chief Meteorologist Terry Swales for the latest information. Terry, this is a good thing that we're at about 23 on the crest stage.
Yeah, we
correct?
haven't budged on that now for about 12 hours straight, so we're pretty confident that's about where the river is going to end up in Cedar Rapids. But right now, the crest is very close to Vinton. It's slowly going up there, but by tomorrow morning, we should be in crest, and that is expected to reach about 21.7 feet. And that is major flooding and the second largest flood to occur in the Vinton area. Of course, the previous one was back in 2008. And it's the same story for Cedar Rapids. We're expecting our second largest crest here at 23 feet, so that is well above the flood stage of 12 foot. And we are going to have major flooding, and it's already beginning to happen out there. On our latest report from our hydrograph, it's now up to nearly 16 feet, the river here in Cedar Rapids. That's where major flooding starts, and will continue to rapidly rise towards that 23-foot level and the crest sometime late Monday night or very early in the day on Tuesday. And a lot of real estate will be flooded around Cedar Rapids. And most importantly, if you're going to be out and about for that morning commute, a lot of the roads in Cedar Rapids have been closed or shut down. It's going to be slow going out there. You'll want to plan for some extra time, and you may need to go in an alternate route because some of these roads are definitely closed and probably for some time to come. Another area that's seen some big flooding today has been on the Wapsie River around Independence. This picture taken late this afternoon by Blake Hayward shows the flooding there impacting some of the businesses in the downtown area. That crest continues to head towards Anamosa, and you should crest around 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning at 24.1 feet, also the second largest crest in Anamosa. But here's the good news. Our front that's been around for several days to come is now moving out of eastern Iowa. Drier and cooler weather is in the forecast now right on into the upcoming weekend.
Terry Swales is back with us now, looking at some history of flooding in Cedar Rapids. And there have been folks that many years ago dealt with this kind of thing.
Many years ago is absolutely right. And here's the first picture we're going to show you right here. And this was taken in 1900, way back in the day there at the turn of the century.
You were just a kid then, weren't you, Terry?
Probably maybe 3 or 4, something like that.
Yeah, so you're telling me this isn't drone footage, right?
No, unless it was a sparrow, I don't know. A bird flying around up there. But yeah.
Well, they used them.
But they had horses and bikes way back in that. And you know, when they settled here back in the 1800s, everybody wanted to go near the rivers. They had to have the rivers for power and for transportation and things of that nature. And that's, of course, why a lot of our major cities were built on rivers in the first place. But they didn't plan on floods too much.
Sure.
And, of course, that's been a bit of an issue over the years. So our next picture advances us to 1929. So what, I would have been about 32 years old then.
Well, you look good for your age.
This is the year after my mother was born.
Sure.
All right, yeah. So this is 12th and 3rd Street Southeast in Cedar Rapids. Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
But,
there's a car there.
Yeah, no more horses and bicycles. They finally got the cars rolling, but causing a mess there in Cedar Rapids. And I think we pointed out, too, the last time we showed this was that if this was in 1931, the crest here would have been over about 11 foot higher than what you're looking at right there.
Oh, my goodness.
And you can imagine, gee, creepers. So they had no idea what was to come many years later. And this is up around Cedar Falls, but it is still the Cedar River there. And the power of the water, I guess, is what I wanted to emphasize here. But that was Highway 218, and that was the main drag back in the day.
It looks like an earthquake.
It's like it's buckled.
Yeah. So the water that just chewed right through that and undermined the ground around it, and that was the end of the road for a while.
Wow.
So must have taken a while to get around on 218 there. But pretty fascinating stuff. And again, these are just a few of the floods that have occurred over our history here in eastern Iowa.
And
we sure have learned a lot.
This reason for the flooding, what is this all about, Terry?
Well, and this is what kind of put us into this situation here. This is the rainfall over the last 7 days. And there's a little bullseye there northwest of Waterloo and northeastern Iowa, but it's really widespread. You can see through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Lots of places 3 to 8 inches of rain and some as much as 14. and that came on ground that had been saturated from heavy rains for the past couple, 3 months around here, so it really couldn't soak into the ground, and it fell right in the headwaters of the Cedar River, and that's put us in the position that we're in tonight.
Too much, too soon, too much over a long period.
Amen to that.
All right, Terry, thank you.
We're going to go to Palo now. Jeff Kennedy, he has been doing a marvelous job out there. Not only is he getting some good food, but he's been really showing us, you know, comparing what the flood did in Palo in 2008, what it's doing right now. And still, you have some water creeping up there in the backyard there, Jeff.
Yeah, Scott and Karen, good evening from Palo, where we think just maybe the river has reached its crest, or it's nearly at its crest. We are high and dry here at the home of Dave and Julie Schottmer, who live in Palo, but you can see there's water that way and water that way and water beyond the street out there into the softball diamond and the splash pad. To get to Schottmer Island, we had to kind of ford this little stream here, and I've got my very fashionable footwear on. I think you'll notice that. Hey, fashion goes out the window when it's like this, guys. About a foot deep, I would say, right here, almost up to the top of my lovely boots. So this is how we got into the Schottmer's house tonight. We're going to go out this way and try not to step in any fish ponds, Scott, okay? That happened earlier. It could happen again. Heading out to the side yard here, this is their side yard. It's now, you know, one big fish pond. It looks like, judging by the patio there, the river has maybe stopped coming up, or if it's coming up very slowly. We think that we might be close to the crest here in the Palo area.
With the crest now having been realized in Cedar Rapids, the question becomes, how soon will the river start receding?
Weather First Chief Meteorologist Terry Swales is keeping track of the projected timeline. He joins us now. Terry?
Yeah, we definitely have some answers to that question, but once again, just wanted to reiterate that it was at about 10:30 this morning when we actually did get the crest, but it was about a foot lower than what we were looking at yesterday, so every inch helps. 21.97 though is what's going into the record books. Currently, we're down just a little bit, about a tenth of a foot there at 21.8 inches. So again, we're still at major flood, and we're going to stay at major flood for at least the next 24 hours. And here's kind of a timeline from our hydrograph of what we're expecting here. Again, right now we're running up there around 21.8 feet. By 2 a.m. Wednesday morning, we should drop to the 20-foot level, and then finally by the time we get to 2 p.m. Friday afternoon, we're way back down to 16 foot. But it is going to take all the way through the weekend to eventually get it back down to what's considered flood stage, and that's 12 foot. But that's a much, much better level than what we've been seeing around here in the past couple, 3 days. So things will improve, but it's going to take a couple of days to do it. And right now we are going to show you some different perspective of the flooding here in eastern Iowa. And you can see the Cedar River, and we're looking from south to north here. And this would be the 16th Avenue Bridge. And what we're going to show you here is that part of the town that's been flooded. You know, they got that kind of that levee they put up right along 16th Avenue there. So we'll show you the picture now, and you can see how effective that is. All of the flooding has been down to the south of that area, and so this is where Tornadoes is located in here. We've heard a lot about them recently, but Nubo, located in this region here, has pretty much stayed high and dry thanks to that levee which was put in this region right here. Here's another view then, and once again this is 16th Avenue, so this is about where the levee is actually running, and then up to the north here this is where Cargill is located. So now we'll put in this picture, and you can see the flooding very distinctly on the right hand side of the levee there. So once again this is just south of Nubo, and you can see there is quite a bit of flooding going on there, but nothing up to the north of that thanks to the levee which was installed by the city. So those are a couple of unique perspectives of the flood, and we'll be back with some different views when we get into our main weather here in just a few minutes.